It's Latin for many.
Tick.
Now suck your blood. Now suck.
Politics.
Okay, time to get into it. Yes, along the same lines, Gons. This was a very interesting find, and this comes from mvtimes.com. MV, like kind of MTV, mvtimes.com. And I believe this is Martha's Vineyard Times.com. Is this correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. And which is interesting. You may know Martha's Vineyard being sort of the one of the most elite geographical areas. All the presidents live there. All the business people have places there. All the politicians, they get places there. And MV Times seems to be a bit of kind of like a news organization.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bloggy.
Well, it's almost like an HOA newsletter.
Right, yeah.
They report on things going on in Martha's Vineyard. Some of the articles are kind of like, they're almost like as if you're part of an HOA and they send you those letters to tell you like how the vote went and how the landscaping upgrade is going, right, and how that kind of stuff. And one of these here is what I just mentioned. The headline is Memorial Wharf Construction Still Not Completed. So a little update on Memorial Wharf in Martha's Vineyard. And it kind of starts out, the Edgartown Select Board was provided with an update on the Memorial Wharf construction, which was expected to be completed by Memorial Day, but has experienced delays. And it's kind of giving an update to, some of the projects in the area. They mention the board. It's kind of like, your HOA board or whatever, your licensing board for the area. But there's an interesting paragraph in here after talking about the wharf going, taking longer than expected. Then there's like a budget problem with, something going on the island. And then there's this little paragraph right here. The select board approved a request for a 2,500-gallon commercial propane tank for 79 Turkeyland Cove Road in Katama, owned by former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. Quote, "We've never had a private propane tank come to us," said Select Board member Arthur Smadbeck, with Select Board member Michael Donorama noting a private residence propane tank is typically a fraction of the quantity being requested. Additional personnel appointments were made, and it just goes on some other neighborhood business. And this little paragraph in here just mentioning that, the Obamas are putting in a 2,500-gallon commercial propane
tank
for their residents. Now, for those who are
why would they do that?
Why would they do that? For those who are on propane, maybe you're off the grid, or maybe you're in a neighborhood that this is something that your residences have. The normal propane tank size for a residence is 500 gallons. Just that normal little pill-looking tank that are outside some houses. 2,500 gallons, that's 5 times bigger. It's a commercial propane tank for the residents of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Could it be that they are possibly preparing for some sort of, energy crisis or energy problem that they're prepping? Is Barack Obama a prepper?
I tend to think maybe they know something that we don't.
Seems that way, doesn't it? So what are the Obamas getting ready for, where they put in a almost 3,000-gallon commercial propane tank in their residence? I think it's just another clue as to what even the elites are expecting in the next few years.
I'm looking at this little thing here, just trying to figure out how long a 2,500-gallon commercial tank would last. And just a quick Google, actually it's not Google, but it's all the internets here, doing a little search. It says a 500-gallon propane tank can last anywhere from 1 month and 23 days to 14 months and 4 days, which is a very huge range.
Depends what you use it for.
I was going to say, it depends on what you use it for. In the case of, let's say, max use, 500-gallon propane tank lasts almost 2 months. Let's call it a month and a half.
That's very short, though.
It's super short, right?
You're cranking your propane if you're using 500
if
gallons.
If you're the Obamas, you gotta keep the whole ship running.
But you could easily, if you're just using it for a little bit of heating and a little bit of cooking, you could stretch it out to a year. Half a year to a year is normal, I think.
So that worries me because the range here is somewhere a 2,500 gallon commercial propane tank would mean, but it's somewhere in the ballpark of, at the shortest, we're talking 6 months, right? Or
that's
more than that. At the most,
would definitely be significantly more.
At the most, we're talking like 6-7 years.
It could possibly 2,500 gallons of propane could last someone, especially if they're in like a situation where they are conserving, if it is some sort of energy apocalypse. I mean, 2,500 gallons could last you 5 to 10 years if you're
it's a long time
if you're diligent about it.
Yeah, I mean that is, it's wild. Now, do you have anything else from this article that you wanted to mention?
No.
Okay, so this article, the reason why we were able to find this article was because it was linked from WorldNet Daily and WND.com. And they had the headline here, "Are the Obamas prepping for the apocalypse?"
Ah, love it.
Mm-hmm. And it goes through here and talks about the tank and, again, provides the source. But there's a little paragraph in here that I thought was very interesting that was highlighted, and now it's not because, internet, everything, cyber pandemic, nothing works. Let's see. Where was it? Clean stuff. Okay, so all this being considered, what are the Obamas up to? According to Joel Gilbert's dazzling new film, Michelle Obama 2024, the Obamas and their globalist friends, remember this is WND, globalist friends are grooming Michelle to be elected or perhaps appointed president in 2024. I recently got a sneak peek of the film, which Gilbert will premiere at the National Press Club in Washington in mid-July. Gilbert makes a convincing case that the puppeteers who orchestrated Obama's ascent are prepared to do the same for Michelle, come hell or high water. Although the islanders are currently raising the memorial wharf on the vineyard in anticipation of the promised rise in sea levels, hell is much more likely to visit America before high water. Oh, thanks, WND. I really appreciate it. But this idea of Michelle, I know it's not new, obviously. It's like an old kind of thing that's been floating out there. But the more time goes on and the more we watch sort of the allowance of Biden to stumble and fail and having the Democrats turn on Biden, which we've seen a lot of recently, this Michelle Obama thing in 2024, I think, is in serious play. And I got a couple reasons for it. It makes a
lot of sense.
It makes a whole lot of sense. And I got a couple reasons for it, too. First off, this was very popular the last few days. This is CNN Politics. Ocasio-Cortez won't commit to backing Biden in 2024. Quote, "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it." And this clip went viral. We don't have to play the clip necessarily. She basically was asked by Dana Bash about supporting Biden in 2024, and I think she responded. Is this her response here? She said, "I think if the president has a vision, then that's something certainly we're all willing to entertain and examine when the time comes." Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat who wields a significant amount of influence over the party's progressive wing, told CNN's Dana Bash on State of the Union when asked if she plans to support Biden in his 2024 re-election bid. Quote, "That's not a yes," Bash said. We maybe should have clipped it because it was a kind of a fun moment there. To which the Congresswoman replied, quote, "We should endorse when we get to it, but I believe that the president's been doing a very good job so far, and, should he run again, I think that take a look at it."
No, you don't. You don't think he's been doing a good job.
"But right now, we need to focus on winning a majority instead of a presidential election," she added, referring to the midterms. So there's some, I don't know, this seems like a little rumbling in that direction. Because if not Joe, then who would they support?
Well, this is very wise of her because the progressives especially are really not fans of Biden.
Well, then they got hammered in this last couple years, too, because they thought their sort of followers thought that they were getting a lot more progressive politics with Biden, and they haven't gotten that. So I'm sure, but that could possibly be part of the setup too. You know, if they want to go more progressive, you got to take the, you got to get hit, kind of like the economy. But so that's something to keep in mind and keep an eye on. And then there's this story, which is sort of, I don't know, this is more speculation on my part. But NPR reported Russia extends Brittany Griner's detention until at least July 2nd. And, they keep extending the hostage situation, so to speak, of Brittany Griner, the WNBA player, the first openly gay athlete that's been sponsored by Nike and all this kind of stuff. Trapped in Russia. She had some hashish on her or something like that.
She had a vape pen. Cannabis vape pen. And
so she's detained and she's still there apparently. And I just thought, wouldn't it be great? And it's kind of hard timing wise. I don't know that they can keep her under Russian whatever for here until 2024. But just, maybe as a sort of potential here, what if Michelle Obama steps up and negotiates with Putin? And they're able to make some kind of deal, release Brittany Griner. Then you have sort of not just a progressive thing, but you have Michelle Obama, who would be the first female president who is also black. Who is, you know what I mean? There's so many things. And then she saves the black gay athlete out of Russia, out of the clutches of the religious right, Putin, bad people. There's just a whole lot of setup here that makes it seem like the Michelle Obama thing is really in play. So just a couple things to look at. I'm not saying that's going to happen.
It's an interesting theory and an interesting strategy for sure.
Yeah,
and makes total sense. I mean, totally not out of the question.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on
the Obamas have done a great job of keeping themselves at the forefront of Democratic popularity.
Right. And I did look into sort of the sentiment of the idea of Michelle Obama becoming president in the last few months to a year. And the only context that I really found, worth mentioning is that there was a bunch of articles about will Barack Obama run again in 2024? And they're most of them are like, oh, he can't because, presidents can only serve 8 years. And then you got people like, you should change that, Obama for life. And it's like, wow, people really want a king, huh? But then there was The Guardian back in February of this year, and the headline was Republicans fear Michelle Obama presidential run, ex-Trump aide says. So there's already been a little bit of rumblings there. And then Newsweek back in December of 2021, Michelle Obama for president, what polls say about her 2024 chances, which is really useless. It really was just more of a, hey, is she popular? And yeah, the polls show that, yes, she's popular and that she would do very well if she did run. So it's all kind of being teed up for that.
Yeah, I totally see it.
Yep. We have a quick Coeur d'Alene update. Did you want to run through this real quick?
I guess, yeah. I was kind of reading through it, trying to figure out what the angle was on here. But this comes from idahotribune.org.
Yes.
And the headline is Local Coeur d'Alene White Lives Matter group affiliated with Patriot Front leaked chat reveals celebration after LGBT event. Just LGBT, huh?
Yeah, the subheadline says they're anti-Christian, anti-conservative, and they're here in North Idaho.
Yeah.
Which is the group, the Patriot Front. They're allegedly anti-Christian and anti-conservative, which is the opposite of what we are led to believe. Are you sure?
I thought that was a quote from this White Lives Matter group talking about someone else. Well, let's find out. While residents of Coeur d'Alene were met, now this is from idahotribune.org, which is an interesting outlet. It does seem to have some pretty
conservative leanings,
serious conservative
right-wing,
right-wing leanings, but they're also reporting on this Patriot Front story. I don't know much else about this outlet, so if anybody has any more information, let us know. While residents of Coeur d'Alene were met by a surprise appearance by Patriot Front over the weekend. That's an interesting way to
surprise appearance. Surprise! Like clowns coming out of a car instead of it's a
we're here in our U-Haul
with the white masks.
Those arrested told a story of 31 young men with little to no connection to North Idaho. However, the local group known as White Lives Matter tells a different story. The Idaho Tribune recently reported on the extremist group White Lives Matter after they had dropped a banner over a highway pass in Post Falls. Along with the banner, one individual with the group held up a white pride flag towards the passing cars below. And they have a picture here, White Lives Matter. Then they give some sort of, I don't even know what I'm looking at here, some sort of URL or eme.wlm.
Oh, it must be the
USA
Telegram
Idaho
or something.
Yeah, you're right. Holding this white pride flag, which is not very subtle, I'll tell you that. It
White pride worldwide.
Yeah, it just literally says White Pride worldwide on it. While news of Patriot Front distracted local residents from sexualized drag queen performances in front of children, another group local to Coeur d'Alene flew under the radar. The relatively small group consists of cells nationwide. Oh, that's not a great way to describe it. That's this is sort of terrorist descriptions there, so maybe it is. I don't know. With only a handful of members in Idaho, the group travels throughout the state holding banners while in a uniform of ski masks and combat boots. This is a tweet from White Lives Matter official. White Lives Matter Idaho activists dropped the banner in Post Falls to commemorate the first year anniversary of the White Lives Matter official activism effort. They were met with resounding praise by the community and left without incident. While many believe Atomwaffen to have disbanded after numerous arrests, the group, whose main focus was to, quote, attack the power grid and, quote, bring society to its knees, may have affiliations with the blossoming White Lives Matter group here in Idaho. A Boise, Idaho cell of Atomwaffen was taken down by law enforcement after it was revealed the terrorist group had been planning, quote, power grid attacks in the southern part of the state. Many commentators online seem to believe these connections are real. Leaked chat room conversations from the White Lives Matter Telegram chat reveal cautionary preparations leading up to the weekend, wherein members discussed bringing masks to conceal their identities. Maybe they're just being COVID sensitive. Who knows? Following the disastrous events over the weekend, the White Lives Matter... that is a weird way to describe the Patriot Front arrest as disastrous events. The White Lives Matter group posted a celebratory video. In the video, you see 5 members of the group simply holding a banner while unhinged liberals and LGBT weirdos shout. The White Lives Matter. That's what I'm saying about this outlet, man. It's kind of like confusing. The White Lives Matter group consists of members who self-declare as non-Christian pagans and openly mock conservatives and Christians within their online chat rooms. Okay, you're right, Gons. White Lives Matter, anti-Christian, anti-whatever. The group, which is reportedly planning major demonstrations in the area, openly affiliates with Patriot Front and could have more devious connections to allegedly disbanded groups such as Atomwaffen, while outsider groups, including LGBT drag queens, Patriot Front, Satanists, and neo-pagans, descended upon North Idaho, turning our home into a national spectacle. The group White Lives Matter continues to recruit locally in preparation for their next major demonstration.
And it says the author here is Johnston Meadows of this article. I'm an author, a Christian, and a loving husband and father. So there you go.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? As we've seen over the past couple years, the oversimplification and identification of basically 2 groups in the United States. You know, you got the Christian conservatives and you got the secular liberals, and those are the only 2 groups, and nothing is more complicated than that. And it's a very useful and effective control mechanism and easy for you to understand, doesn't leave you scratching your head, lets you know who the enemy is, and is very good at mobilizing and motivating different groups to act in certain ways from the top down, starting with the elites, political and financial elites who want to keep the war the sort of social wars, culture wars, off of the topic of classism or classist issues, and more on what some might consider more petty issues. And they've been very effective.
Yeah.
And it takes a local, Idaho outlet to
Point out.
completely confuse and destroy that narrative. You've got the Patriot Front where you just kind of assume they're Christians and racist and things like that, and a lot of that certainly seems to be close to the truth, although there was no religious undertones to their literature that we covered last episode. This one is just like, yeah, there's White Lives Matter, and they're pagans, and they hate Christians, and they're anti-conservative, which I guess means they're. The assumption is that they're liberal, but they're obviously not liberal if they're, against LGBT things. So I think this is a wonderful example of how local news can actually report on stuff going on that does not easily fit into a constructed narrative that is useful for the elites. And even the confusion that I feel reading this is sort of a signal to that.
This is just based on observation on my part, so please don't take this the wrong way. Not you personally, but just out there.
Sure.
But I've noticed that the movement towards a more, it's not I wouldn't consider it like racist white supremacy, but more of a nuanced sort of, hey, us white people from Europe, we are allowed to preserve our culture too, like that kind of narrative. I guess it's sort of would you call it populist maybe?
No, but I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? There's that sentiment, I suppose, of, hey, white people should unite, our people are being, genocide, all this kind of stuff. It wasn't coming from Christians a lot of times.
Right,
it comes it does come from a more secular, kind of a sometimes even pagan sort of background. So that is really the facts, but then when you see the mainstream, they just lump all of those people as Christians or as right-wing extremists or whatever. So it makes it really confusing for the general public. But in reality, the people that are really all about this sort of white pride kind of thing are mostly like pagans, which is
exactly.
It's so crazy, but not talked about.
You've got a lot of the white supremacist groups. They actually identify specifically as pagan, and a lot of them specifically as, Norse.
Norse, yes. And somebody mentioned
Norse types.
All Eyes Will See in the chat says Red Ice narrative yucky poo. Red Ice was one of those places that, they were a lot more like coast to coast. They're doing a lot of like UFO stuff and Fringe and all that kind of thing. And then
they used to be sort of like, we used to kind of look at them as
like
colleagues,
they had
almost.
Their stuff was polished. It was really nice. They talked about all that. And then they really went hard in on the, hey, they're trying to kill all white people narrative, which, again, you have the right to report and sort of take positions on anything you want.
Analyze,
that's I'm for free speech. So it's like, okay, if you want to talk about that, please feel free to do so. I'm not saying that they can't or shouldn't talk about it, but it's just fascinating how in the media, it's just a complete different way they paint the picture. So,
well, it's not very convenient, is it? Because, if you've got a large group of straight up white supremacists and they are claiming to be pagan, that's not very convenient for like the liberal Wiccans and the popularity of, witchcraft or witch talk or, the pagans on the other side.
Well, that's the thing too. There's pagans who are against the whole LGBTQ thing because they see it as a, sort of an extermination thing. And it's like, they're trying to end, our civilization by depopulating us with the whole gay agenda. So they're on board with weird stuff that, not weird, but just things that are, it's like a mixed bag of stuff that's not being reported accurately in the mainstream, which is why I think most people will be confused when they start looking into this a little more.
I mean, it's a great deconstruction, and it's a poignant fact, which is that it's inconvenient for the control narrative to state the reality that much of the white supremacist culture is rooted in, pagan religiosity and not Christian.
Yeah.
But, that doesn't work very well for the Democrats, so you don't hear about it very much.
We made too many movies with the token white guy as the religious nut who wants to blow everybody up.
Well, and to be fair, it's also useful to the Republican narrative, too.
Is, yeah.
Not to point out just one side of the coin, as far as the false paradigm of the left-right paradigm, which, of course, we try our best to deconstruct here on an episode basis, that, the idea, the ignoring of the pagan racists is actually good for Republicans, too, because in the same way that the left loves to count up victim points, the right does similar things too, which is, hey, they think we're all racists. And we know we're not, but can you believe that they just keep lying about this? It's like a very useful lie for both sides.
It's the lies are useful for both sides.
And it's all based on victimhood as sort of the basic economic unit of that narrative.
Yeah.
The left can say, oh, the right's racist, that makes us victims, and the right says, hey, they're all lying and saying that we're racist, so that makes us victims. So everybody's victims here. Victim. It's the currency of the time.
Yep.
Well, okay. Thank you very much, Idaho Tribune there, you beautiful, confusing, weird little outlet.